Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a topic that honestly sounds a little absurd right out of the gate, but I promise you it is deeply grounded in biology. We're talking about why your neighbor's new car makes you miserable, according to monkeys. Yeah, you heard me right. If you've ever felt that weird sudden pang of annoyance when somebody you know gets something nice, well, you're in the right place. We're going to look at the primate behavioral science that explains some of our absolute pettiest human emotions.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why exactly does their car hurt? Look, we've all been there, right? You're having a perfectly good Tuesday, you're sipping your morning coffee, looking out the window, and boom, there it is. That neighbor you occasionally wave to just pulled into the driveway in a gleaming, fresh off the lot, top-of-the-line vehicle. And suddenly, for literally no logical reason, your perfectly fine day takes this tiny, invisible nosedive. Your chest kind of tightens up, you feel annoyed, maybe even just straight up miserable. I mean, why does a random piece of metal owned by somebody else cause actual psychological discomfort in your brain? It's a super relatable, incredibly uncomfortable, and, let's be honest, pretty petty feeling. But, as we're going to see in just a moment, it is absolutely not a failure of your moral character.
Moving into Section 1, the neighbor's new ride, or, as I like to call it, a driveway tragedy.
So picture the agonizing driveway reveal. Try to imagine the scene clearly. Literally 10 minutes before that car pulled up, you were perfectly content with your life. And crucially, you were perfectly content with your own car. It gets you from point A to point B, right? The AC works, it's reliable, you had zero complaints about it. But the sheer misery of watching your neighbor pull up in that brand new ride, it instantly rewrites your reality. Suddenly, your trusty, reliable sedan feels like a rusty tin can. Those shiny leather seats sitting over in their driveway suddenly make your cloth seats feel like a personal insult. We really need to lean into this uncomfortable feeling for a second, because recognizing just how irrational this sudden misery is, that's the very first step to understanding the profound, ancient biological machinery that's actually operating underneath it all.
Which brings us to Section 2. Enter the monkeys. Let's talk about primate behavior.
And this brilliantly illustrates the connection. We can actually map the modern artifact of the luxury car directly back to primal monkey behavior and social hierarchies. In the primate world, you see, status is literally everything. Status determines who gets the best food, who gets the safest sleeping spot, who gets the best grooming partners. For a monkey, a high status symbol might be snagging a particularly rare piece of fruit, or maybe holding a dominant physical posture. For us, living in these modern suburbs, well, that status symbol has just evolved into a German-engineered luxury SUV. The core mechanism hasn't changed a bit in millions of years. Literally, only the props have changed.
What we're talking about here is evolutionary hardwiring. This is the deeply ingrained primate's survival and status programming that still triggers our modern social reactions today. When you find yourself glaring over the fence at that shiny new car, you are essentially doing the exact same thing a capuchin monkey does when it looks over and sees another monkey holding a bigger, sweeter grape. It's wild, right? Your brain is just rapidly scanning your immediate social environment for hierarchy cues. Back in our ancestral environment, being lower on the status ladder meant you were way less likely to survive a famine or a predator attack. So your brain evolved to sound a massive alarm, a feeling of anxiety or misery, whenever it perceives somebody else jumping ahead of you in the social pecking order. So let yourself off the hook. Your misery isn't petty jealousy. It's literally a primitive survival alarm going off in a modern neighborhood.
All right, on to Section 3, the science of envy. Apes in trousers.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we can actually quantify this misery. Look at this. When you get a new car, you experience this massive spike in happiness. I mean, of course, right? It's a fantastic feeling. But if you get a new car and your neighbor gets a better new car on that exact same day, your happiness completely plummets. Why does that happen? Because relative value, not absolute value, is what actually dictates our emotional state. In absolute terms, hey, you just got a great new car. You should be absolutely thrilled. But your primate brain, it doesn't care about absolute terms at all. It literally only cares about where you stand relative to the guy next door.
Scientists actually have a specific term for this phenomenon. It's called relative deprivation. It's the psychological misery that happens when monkeys, or humans, compare their rewards to the superior rewards of their peers. There's this super famous experiment where researchers trained monkeys to do a simple task, and they rewarded them with pieces of cucumber. Now, the monkeys loved the cucumber. They were totally happy, doing the task, eating their snacks. But then, the researchers switched it up. They started giving one monkey a sweet, delicious grape for the exact same task, while continuing to give the other monkey a cucumber. Well, the monkey getting the cucumber absolutely lost its mind. It threw the cucumber back at the researcher, it started rattling the cage, just a total meltdown. Now think about it. The cucumber didn't change. It was still a perfectly good piece of food, but the relative value of that cucumber plummeted the absolute second the grape entered the equation. Folks, your neighbor's car is the grape. Your car is the cucumber.
So the crucial point is what our source material notes right here. Relative value dictates happiness. We simply are not wired to evaluate our lives in a vacuum. It's just not how we're built. We evaluate our success, our comfort, and our very happiness as a moving target, and it's calibrated entirely by the people immediately surrounding us. Isolating this idea really helps us realize that the whole game of keeping up with the Joneses isn't some side effect of modern capitalism. It's a built-in feature of primate biology.
Let's move into our final section, Section 4, Taming the Primate Brain, Handling the Monkey.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a practical strategy. Here are 3 structured steps to process these weird primate feelings based on our explainer today. Step 1. Recognize the envy. When you feel that tightening in your chest upon seeing the new car, just label it. Just say to yourself, yep, there's my inner monkey getting agitated. Step 2. Blame your evolutionary hardwiring. Take the moral judgment totally out of it. You aren't a bad person for feeling a quick flash of envy. Your ancient survival circuits are just misfiring because, let's be real, a Honda Civic is not actually a threat to your physical safety. And finally, step 3. Ignore the monkey status symbol. Really remind yourself that you have your own perfectly good cucumber, and someone else having a grape does not actually diminish the nutritional value or the driving reliability of what you already possess.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you looking directly into your own evolutionary mirror. So how will your primate brain react the next time that shiny new car drives by? Tomorrow or maybe next week, when your neighbor pulls up with the custom rims or the fancy new trim package, are you going to let the programming take over and throw your metaphorical cucumber at the wall? Or will you take a deep breath, smile at your neighbor, and appreciate the incredibly complex and occasionally ridiculous multi-million-year journey of the human brain? Keep observing your world and keep learning. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.